The Agricultural Development Bank, ADB, has suspended plans to float about 100 million shares on the Ghana Stock Exchange until consultations with the Workers' Union are concluded. The decision was arrived at after a meeting between management of the bank, the Workers' Union, and the Employment and Labour Relations Minister, Haruna Idrisu. I'll be telling you what this decision means for the bank and what the implications will be. Bertha Atubiga of the Gold Coast Management Fund will also join us later on to tell what you should be looking out for in the stock market. We'll also tell you how the dollar is now faring. I'll tell you more when we return.
Group Chief Executive of EcoBank, Barima Osei Asare, is insisting that banks cannot be blamed for the high interest rates. Barima Osei told Joy Business it is not even in the interest of banks to charge these high rates. He suggested what, in his view, could drive interest rates down, but charged government to take the leading role. The Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, says it has noted with serious concern the worsening business climate in Ghana since the beginning of the year. The concern, according to the association, is evident in the latest AGI Business Barometer report, which recorded a dip in business confidence. A press release signed by the AGI president said businesses have been under severe pressure from the power crisis, cedi depreciation, high cost of credits, and difficulty in getting bank credit, among others. The Bank of Ghana has indicated that it might be compelled to force commercial banks to reduce the expensive charges for services if the banks do not take the steps themselves. Governor Dr. Kofi Wampa dropped the hint when he addressed a dinner to mark the 25th year of existence of EcoBank Ghana. According to the Bank of Ghana, interest rate is currently at 23.49%. Chief Executive of the Chamber of Mines, Suleiman Kony, has confirmed plans by a number of mining firms to list on the Ghana Stock Exchange within a couple of years. Moves to get mining firms to list on the local bourse are yet to be realized due to some challenges from the market. Chief Executive of the Chamber, Suleiman Kony, says Goldfields has expressed interest to list on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Joy News has uncovered questionable expenditures by the Agricultural Development Bank in relation to furniture for its new office and a recent media briefing. Managing Director of ADB, Stephen Kpoji, told journalists at a media briefing recently that the bank did not pay for the furniture at its new office building at the Accra Financial Center. But documents available to Joy News indicate that ADB paid money to that effect. Documents available indicate that on October 13, 2014, ADB paid 1,590,000 cedis to bespoke furniture for supplies for the new office. COCOBOD, Ghana's regulator for the cocoa industry, has pulled out of HFC Bank. COCOBOD was one of 4 large institutional shareholders of HFC Bank. The others are SNIT, Ghana Union Assurance Company, and SIC. Prior to COCOBOD's pullout, it owned about 5.57% stake in the bank. But it sold its shares during Republic Bank's mandatory takeover offer period to shareholders of the bank. COCOBOD's 5.6% stake accumulated to about 60 million shares in the bank.
So that was the business roundup. Now we'll go to the substantive issue, and the Agricultural Development Bank has suspended plans to float about 100 million shares on the Ghana Stock Exchange until consultations with the Workers' Union are concluded. The decision was arrived at after a meeting between management of the bank, the Workers' Union, and the Employment and Labour Relations Minister, Haruna Idrisu. The leadership of the workers have accused the management of exercising poor judgment, supervising an abysmal performance, and conflict of interest. The sale of its headquarters was also discussed. According to the minister, the most contentious issue was the plan to offload 70% of government shares in the Pro-Agric Bank. Now, Managing Director of the bank, Stephen Kpoji, however, denies running down the bank and leading the decision to list on the stock market, explaining that plans to float about 100 million shares on the stock market is a decision of the shareholders of ADB. Take a listen.
I, as the project, has never made a decision to sell shares. It is the shareholders of the bank who have decided that this is the way they want to go, and I've instructed the bank, acting through me, to pursue the process, and that is what I'm doing. So we are going to respond to that letter by referring it to the sector minister, who is the finance minister, who has oversight responsibility for ADB. Having said that, I would like to read to you a letter from the Ministry of Finance dated 31st October 2014, and please indulge me. Public listing of Agricultural Development Bank ADB, re-parliamentary approval. As you may recall, we requested the Ministry for Justice and Attorney General's Department to advise us on whether a parliamentary approval will be required in addition to the cabinet approval to enable us proceed with the necessary further public listing processes. We have accordingly received letter number D55/S5.2V.13, dated 20th October 2014, copy attached for ease of reference in that regard. The Ministry for Justice and Attorney General's Department has explicitly indicated that a parliamentary approval will not be required for the listing of the bank on the Ghana Stock Exchange. We trust that with this advice, we can now proceed with the necessary further action. Signed, Major Retired M.S. Tara, Chief Director for the Minister. So ADB is healthy, just that we don't have capital to fund growth.
So therefore, the solution to that challenge will be what?
It's capital.
The group has also denied rumors that it is listing on the stock market because some board members of ADB who took huge loans from the bank are refusing to pay.
Write-off is a normal practice in banking, and it's actually mandated by international conventions on banking, and actually recently the Bank of Ghana came out with clear guidelines on how write-offs should be undertaken. In this bank, in order not to give people the impression that when we write off a bad debt, it means that the debt is gone forever, we've actually adopted the term set aside. Because when we write off a customer's debt based on the principles that have been approved or the guidelines that have been approved by the Bank of Ghana, we hand those over to the external legal firms and the collections agencies that my senior colleague was referring to, for them to pursue, and they return to us on a, get paid on a success basis. Between 2010 to date, we've actually had to set aside, and please note the term set aside, a total of 93.7 million Ghana cedis out of our non-performing loans. So that is what we've done so far. These bad debts or non-performing loans that we've set aside are not things that we have forgiven. Writing off a debt is not debt forgiveness. It is that we now hand them over to external collectors for them to pursue. And believe me, we're getting a lot of returns from that. I think for this year alone, we may have gotten not less than 4-point-something million from the not written off debts which are being pursued by our external lawyers.
There is no correlation between a board member giving a loan and the established recovery process of a bank. That is the starting point. When they say a loan is written off or set aside, it is taken out of the balance sheet. It is taken out of the balance sheet and put on a memo. And then when we recover, it comes back into the bottom line, and then it goes into income surplus and it builds up capital. So that is the accounting treatment of that one, you know. But I see where you're coming from, and I'll address it. That do board members also take loans? Yes, they do. Board members, just as staff of the bank, can take loans, and there are guidelines by the central bank, and those ones are pursued vigorously. Whether they all are able to pay or not is a different issue, and they are pursued to pay.
Now, the minority in Parliament is threatening, meanwhile, to drag the bank to court if it fails to seek parliamentary approval before it goes on with the listing. The Ministry of Finances, however, cleared the ADB to proceed with the sale, saying that the sale does not require parliamentary approval. Now, what does the suspension of ADB's listing on the stock market mean to the bank? And we have been joined on the line by investment analyst Mahama Idrisu to further peruse the matter. Hello, Mr. Idrisu.
Good evening and good evening to your listeners.
Thanks for joining us. Now, tell us, to what extent could the ongoing happenings at the bank affect the initial public offering?
In fact, I've not listened to your preamble, but listened to the press releases and everything that is going on. What I think is that the sponsors will have to do a lot of work to convince investors to buy into ADB when it's listing. Having said that, for experienced investors on the stock market, they definitely have very good analysts who will tell them whether the investment is a good bet or not.
Now, how exactly could this IPO change the fortunes of the bank?
One, from the point of view of the stock exchange, looking at the stock exchange, one, it's going to increase the capitalization. It's going to bring about diversification in the investment in banking stocks because they are adding another bank. Secondly, thirdly, what it's going to do is that it will afford some foreign investors who are interested in a bank that has some portfolio of agri, even though that has reduced a lot, to invest in the bank. If you look at on the part of investors, what they're actually going to do is that they will now have a lot of variety to invest. We have a lot of fund management companies that are actually getting some funds from their trustees and from their clients as pension money that they want to invest some in the stock market. This will afford them the variety. On the part of the company, one, it is raising capital to augment what they already have, and that means that we can see big ticket transactions and we can see their loan portfolio grow. Secondly, it affords them the ability to raise additional capital anytime if they think it fit to be able to take advantage of the growth in the economy if that comes. It also will bring a lot of transparency because you have to issue every quarter report to shareholders, to the regulatory authorities, to tell investors how their bank or their investment is doing, and that brings a lot of transparency. And there are a lot of other benefits in terms of efficiency, in terms of transparency, and in terms of benefit that the staff may get due to the good performance that may come out of listing.
Right. Now, what's happening is definitely not good publicity for the ADB. Now, is the IPO the only way forward for the bank?
The IPO is not the only way for the bank, but it will still bring a lot of comments and a lot of commentary by investors, by analysts, by politicians, and by bankers. One, the other way they can do to raise capital, if they actually want to raise capital, they can get some debt capital to be able to do what they are supposed to do at a very good rate if they are able to negotiate well. But the best option is probably a private placement before the listing, where you target some kind of investors. And that also can bring comments that the investors targeted are known faces or people that the bank or the shareholder or even other stakeholders would like them to have a stake in ADB before listing. And that means that they gain advantage more than the people that will invest if it is going IPO this time. And that also will deny the ordinary Ghanaian like me and you from taking part or getting the gains that me and you have contributed to the taxpayers' money to be able to invest in ADB, just like GCB did.
So for you, the IPO is highly essential. That's what you want to say, essential.
For me, IPOs are very good for companies if the money raised is actually would put to use as is specified in the prospectus. There are some that it takes time before they utilize it. But this time is time value of money. If the company is going to put the money into good use, and the money is raised for the shareholder to dilute his shareholding and not to pick some of the money out that has been raised, that means that that's a very good investment.
Now, what exactly is wrong with how ADB is going about this IPO that's, sparing this controversy, in your opinion?
My opinion, I don't know whether it's a controversy before the IPO or the IPO before the controversy. But what I know is that for a very good IPO, first of all, the shareholders must agree to it, the board must agree to it, management must agree to it. Then you go down even to the security man to explain to him what the IPO will bring and what you are doing to make the IPO successful. In any case, before you even send your documents for approval, it means that everything, every comment, every discussion is on a clean sheet. And that means that before the IPO starts, there won't be any negative information coming out of the company. And for me, I think that is unfortunate.
Now, finally, before I let you go, could the ongoing controversy affect other state institutions that would want to go public? Is it a good or bad precedent?
What I actually think is that what it's going to do is that any time any state institution is going for a listing, there will be a lot of scrutiny before they will do that. There will have to be a lot of stakeholder consultation, because for me, if you ask me, I think that the people probably in authority underrated these issues, whether they will come out at the wrong time or at the right time. But it means that when another state is going to be listed, the management, the shareholder, and even the board will do a lot of consultation to make sure that things are right before the documents are being prepared.
Many thanks for your time, Sir. Mahama Idrisu is an investment analyst, and we'll take a break now. We'll be back with more. Do stay. Away from ADB matters, let's do something on oil. And Ghana found oil some years ago, and expectations are high as to how it will make life easier for all Ghanaians. Now, some analysts have said that expectations of the oil are too high. Take a listen.
Developing countries is like driving in a home-used car. You can have plans. I've been 18, a lot of people have been 18 in Europe, and they want to buy a car. But it's not the car you actually want. It's the car that you can afford. Now, a lot of developing countries, and I hear people saying a lot of smart things about the economy. Let's not forget, Ghana is a developing country. I'm from a country where the GDP per capita is 300 times as high as Ghana. And we make plans, and we still have to leave the plan sometimes when there are other emergencies. And the reason I compared it to a home-used car is you can buy a home-used car as an enthusiastic person. You have your plan. You want to have flashy wheels under your car. You want to have your car sprayed, and you want your car to look nice. But whilst you are driving, you find out you have a flat tire, you have to replace a tire. That means your spraying of your car is going to be postponed. A week later it rains, you find out your wiper falls off. You have to postpone your spraying of your car and maybe your wheels because you need a wiper. You also have to change oil. So budgets and plans are beautiful things, but when you have a very limited budget, which actually the government of Ghana has, and it doesn't matter if it's NDC government or MPP government, your priorities are always coming up by the circumstances because we hardly have savings. And that's the problem not only for Ghana, but almost every developing country in the world. And that's what I said. I don't compare Ghana to a home-used car. No, I think the oil is a blessing for Ghana. And I'm actually happy that it's not found on land, but on the sea, knowing the land problems we always have in Ghana. But let's not forget countries like South Africa. And South Africa, the apartheid came on its knees because of lack of oil. But still, up until today, they produce almost 3 times as much oil as Ghana. Egypt, which is supposed to be a country in the Middle East that doesn't have much oil, is even going to be producing 3 times as much oil daily as Ghana at its peak in 2021. What I mean to say is it is an enormous impact on the small economy of Ghana. But as a total, it's not that big worldwide. So we have to be very prudent with it. And we have to look very good how we spend it. But as I said to the previous interviewer, if we look at the total amount that oil brings us in Ghana cedis, and you start comparing it to dollars already, it shrinks 1/4. But if you compare it to the number of Ghanaians in Ghana, it buys us 1 kinky a week. And what can you effectively do with that money if you don't spearhead it into 1 or 2 sectors only?
Well, others disagree with him. Take a listen.
Yeah, when we discovered oil and eventually began production, we had expected the oil revenues and the industry to add on to what we had already. And as I said, we were spending at the time on average 7% of GDP on capital investments, public investment. And so the expectation was that the additional oil revenue would help to raise that expenditure. But when oil came, the resources that we were spending already from the government's own income on capital investment were then shifted significantly into consumption, such that the oil revenue came to replace what we were doing before. So our development has not been maximized. In fact, the spending on capital investment has fallen since we had oil. So there's no evidence that the development of the country has been maximized or indeed has been enhanced by the coming in of oil. What I do expect is that there are serious rigidities in the budget. The expenditure on wages, the expenditure on interest payments, the transfers to the statutory funds. We have to curb the expenditure on these recurrent related items so that we can generate resources from the non-oil sector to finance capital investment. Then the oil will supplement that investment, and then we can increase what we were doing before. But as it stands now, with the rigidities in the budget, the burden of public investment has fallen on all revenues, on generous donors, and on public debt buildup, which is not sustainable.
Well, we continue to monitor petroleum revenues. Away from that, Bertha, well, could not join me here, but is on the phone, and she will be giving us an update. Bertha, good evening.
Yeah, hello, good evening, Abigail.
How are you doing?
By God's grace, I'm doing very well. I hope you're good too.
Yeah, I'm fine. Just missing you in the studio.
I'll be there next week.
All right. Now, what's happening with the markets? Last week you gave us some good news. Is it the same?
Well, it's rather unfortunate that last week or the week under review on the Ghana Stock Exchange was relatively unimpressive, as we saw aggregate price movement on the board, driving average returns on the broader market index downwards by 0.78 points to close with an average yield or return of negative 0.26%. That was a drop of 0.78%. That was not quite impressive, but however, the financial stock index went up by 1.04 points, 0.05% to close at 2.45% year-to-date return. So we could see that there was a mixture, so we didn't see positive returns with the CI, which measures the average performance of all the listed entities. The financial stock index, however, went up. We also saw the volumes and values of the shares on the market going up by over 100%. Okay. But however, we saw the value of the exchange, that is market capitalization, going down by 96.70 million Ghana cedis. And this we could say it was a result, or the performance that we're seeing right now on the exchange could be a result of the pertaining macroeconomic challenges that the country is encountering now.
Right.
But despite that, we still saw quite good news, though the equities that lost were more than the equities that actually gained on the stock market.
So what exactly accounted for this?
Well, we could say some of the factors that really accounted for this was that we had a bulk trade over the week. That was Carl had a bulk trade. That's why we see the volumes of shares actually being more than what we experienced last week. Aside, and I think we got a GCP as well. But if not for that, we would have seen a downward movement as well. And we could see that the performance on the exchange actually slowed down last week, and that started from the previous week. And then we could say the city's depreciation, as we all expected, at least to be a little bit stable, didn't really reflect that. And investors are actually sitting back, and we are seeing relatively lower volumes of shares exchanging hands on the exchange. And we're not seeing that significant movement like we usually see, where we have so many entities adding up investors' capital or getting so many capital gains in the market that we didn't see that, and we didn't see much of that within the week. So we could say investors are actually stepping back to look at some of the equities that they should invest in. And aside that, so we could say that some are also still holding on to their portfolios, and some are yet to analyze the financials that they have been released. Quite impressive though, but they have to analyze. As an investor, you need to analyze because you need maximum returns in the future.
So Bertha, what are the gainers and losers? Quickly, if you can take us through.
Well, we have 3 gainers and 6 losers at the close of the week, and Carl topped the gainers list as it added 1.92% to its previous price, that's 2% to its previous price. EPG, which is still on its gaining streak, also went up by a Tesla, that is 12% on its week opening price, as each Ghana is closed at 80% of 1 Tesla. And then Grell, which actually is doing so well compared to its competitor Total, which are both listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange, returned 1.67%, that's 2% to its week opening price. However, Total joined the losers list as a top loser, that is, it's lost 13.68%, that's 84% pesos of its week opening price. So it currently trades at 5.30 pesos. And we also saw other equities. We saw on the losers table, we saw 4 financial equities losing, 1 manufacturing equity, and 1 petroleum-based equity. That is Total. So OGG, the French bank, was the second loser, lost 7%. And then we also saw UCB losing 5.56%. Let me quickly talk about the oil and petroleum sector. It currently has a 1.54% average return. That's these 2 equities. And you realize that Total is not actually doing well, and Grell is doing well. One thing that we as analysts, we have realized is that it has to do with the management, or what these 2 companies are into. They are both into oil, they both supply oil and fuel. But now let's look at Grell happens to supply aviation industries like the air. We have, it also supplies the airlines. Some airlines it supplies the ships and all vessels and all that. So we could say this is actually giving them a competitive advantage over Total.
Right.
And in the long run, we realize that they're getting more profit, or they make more profit than what Total will be.
Sure, I'm sure they are the stocks we should be looking out for next week.
Well, let's see some of the equities that we're looking out for, and we here at Gold Coast Fund Management, we're looking at EBG, HSC, Ghana Commercial Bank, March, and Standard Chartered Bank. But however, EBG happens to be our top pick, or the highest equity that we are advising investors to actually go into. Why am I saying this? Because it has increased in liquidity, consistent uptake with its price since year opening, and it has a current growth rate that since year opening of 7.27%. So this equity actually has the potential to even advance further in its price on the Ghana Stock Exchange.
Thank you very much, Bertha Atubiga, with that analysis there. And that is where we would end Business Life today. My name is Abigail Adomako Enchi.